Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists like Kunle put people at the heart of everything they create.
The way that I approach work post-fatherhood has really been trying to understand the generation that we're building devices for. Here at the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own.
Now millions of families can work, learn, and play together under one roof. Visit ComcastCorporation.com to learn more.
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to break down the Orioles signing of Tomoyuki Sugano, what it means for the rotation now that the Orioles have added the 35-year-old right-hander on a one-year, $13 million deal who will make his MLB debut next year after a career in Japan that saw him as one of the most accomplished pitchers in Japanese baseball. And we'll talk about all of that on tonight's episode of Orioles on the Verge, which is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC. Head to BetOnline today, and don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. So the Orioles make their first move to bolster the rotation this offseason by signing Sugano to a one-year, $13 million contract. Now, Sugano has been a big name in Japan for a long time. And if you've watched the World Baseball Classic, certainly in the last couple of editions, you have probably seen Sugano on the mound at some point. Now, you go back to when he was pitching for Team Japan in 2017. He's a little bit of a different pitcher now. Does not throw as hard as he did then. Probably does not throw his fastball as often. But what he possesses at this age is a very deep repertoire with excellent command. And the Orioles are banking on that, helping to improve their rotation next year. Sugano is certainly not the pitcher that can address the hole at the top of the Orioles rotation, but seemingly gives them good depth. And we'll break that down on tonight's episode. And I'll just start off with this thought, which is that this felt like a perfect Mike Elias move. Really no sign that it was coming until it happened. So I have to think that he felt good about that. But as we'll talk about a little bit more tonight, Ken Rosenthal at The Athletic put together an interesting piece breaking down how the Orioles managed to sign Sugano. So we'll get into that a little bit. And we'll also break down what his addition means to the rotation. So, Nick, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this move?
It's fine. I think like for the role that he's going to be expected to fill and what he can provide on the field this year, I think it's a fine move. Like, he is a 35-year-old pitcher coming in from overseas. Yes, he's one of the more decorated pitchers of all time over there in Japan. He's had a fantastic career, but he's not going to find like the fountain of youth over here and like add more velo to the fastball or pump out a ton of innings. But I do think that because Like I'm not really holding out any hope that Kyle Bradish throws any meaningful innings this year, or Tyler Wells. As much as we're talking about all the aces we're trading for and all the aces we wanted the Orioles to sign, they also needed to like raise the floor of this rotation and like solidify the back end of that rotation. And for that purpose, I think adding Sugano to the mix here is a solid move. Like you said, the fastball velo has diminished. The stuff may have diminished a little bit, but the guy throws a ton of strikes. The guy misses barrels, and as long as he can continue that, then I think he will be pretty successful. Like I've seen some takes like as much as he's our number 3. Like I wouldn't say that. Or like he pushes Kramer out of the rotation. I wouldn't say that either. I'd say he's in the mix. He's a solid option. I kind of assumed that they were going to go back to the KBO, and I was waiting for the Orioles to sign Kyle Hart tweet to drop, former Red Sox prospect who had an ugly debut in 2020 and never made it back to the majors, but revamped his stuff. And apparently there are like 18 teams interested in his services. And I figured the Orioles have to be in on him. And that's going to be the move that they bring in. But I like the veteran. I think the more exciting stuff is definitely what potential impact he could have down the road in future years or off the field. But as far as like who he is as a pitcher, solid depth move that raises the floor of the rotation and brings a much needed veteran in that mix, because there's good depth, but it's all young, inexperienced rookie depth. And bringing a 35-year-old, all-star MVP Japanese pitcher into the fold, like you said, completely unexpected, but yeah, I like it.
Yeah, love being blindsided by Mike Elias in this front office when it comes to these things. Always assume it's going to be someone we're not expecting, and Sugano is certainly that. And if you look at Orioles Twitter, you'd think we got worse with this signing rather than better. But I beg to differ with those takes. Yeah, I like it. Just whether it works out or not, it's obviously risky when you're bringing in a 35-year-old who could potentially be on the decline. His velocity's down over the past few years. I think 2024 was a nice bounce back for him after a couple down years before that. But I think the Orioles announcement of his signing on Twitter has already broken the team record for likes and views and retweets and everything else. So clearly this is having an impact in a different market that the Orioles haven't been to in quite a while, since Wei-Yin Chen and Koji Uehara days. So love to see this front office dive into the Asian market, and I doubt that it has any effect whatsoever on Roki Sasaki and that sweepstakes that's going on. But hey, if he's a big Tomoyuki Sugano fan from way back, then maybe it does help a little bit. I'm not going to get my hopes up on that, but I think it's cool. And honestly, the stuff looks like it's going to play as long as he can learn to pitch up in the zone a little bit more and go to the breaking stuff and pitch sequencing a little bit different than the game in Japan says. I think I saw the stuff plus numbers. The fastball was like an 80, but everything else was 100 and up. Splitter looks fantastic. Curveball looks pretty good. So I think this Orioles pitching development and Drew French and company can get him to get out there every 5 or 6 days and be helpful to his team. Like you said, we need depth, not just at the top of the rotation, but also in the middle/bottom. I mean, we've got a lot of decent options, but none of them, like Nick said, are this veteran that's proven to get the job done. And I still think we're going to go out and get a top of the rotation guy. That's obviously still the goal. Ken Rosenthal even said that in one of his pieces. And I want to point out something Dan Sanchez said, who's a great follow on Twitter, or Blue Sky now, always with the smart takes. He was looking at the projections for Sugano. It's about 140 innings, around 100 ERA plus, maybe a little bit better. Zip's projection for Nick Pivetta is 133 innings, 100 ERA plus, 1.7 WAR, which is pretty close to Sugano, and he's projected to get 3 or 4 years, close to $20 million annual average salary, and will cost you a draft pick. So, as usual, the Orioles looking at the cost-effective, the smarter choices when it comes to these types of signings.
Yeah, in really no way does it make this team worse. What I think it does is it gives them a buffer because I'm kind of the same mindset as Nick right now, which is that even if you're holding out hope that Tyler Wells and Kyle Braddis give you meaningful innings this year, you have to prepare for the possibility that that's not going to happen. You have to prepare for the possibility that Albert Suarez is going to regress. You have to prepare for the possibility that one of, or possibly two, or maybe all three of Brandon Young, Chase McDermott, and Cade Povitz can't break through in the majors this year. So there's all these variables that I think you have to account for. And as we saw last year, accounting for the unforeseen matters a lot because the Orioles really couldn't do that last year. Granted, they had a lot of things thrown in their face as the season went on, but really what we saw at the end was their depth kind of eroded, especially on the position player side. So I really do think that Sugano helps to buffer in that respect. Upside wise, yeah, I'm thinking right now he's a 4 or 5 starter. If you get 140 decent innings out of him, I think you call that a win. And as for what they can work with, I just like the fact that the guy does not walk anybody. It's one thing to have the fastball down from the mid-90s where it was at the prime of his career to kind of now the 92, 93 range is what most estimates I saw. But like Bob said, if you can get him to work that fastball up in the zone more and he continues to throw his other pitches for strikes, I don't see how he can be any worse than a league average pitcher.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of some other guys in the past. Like, it's not like an Alex Wells, where he was fantastic command but no stuff. Like, Sugano has stuff. You mentioned the fastball stuff plus might have been like 80, and that's not great. But I know Lance Brzezowski also put out a great thread that just nice, beautiful summation, pitch by pitch breakdown. He posted on Twitter and Blue Sky there. Check that out. Like you said, quoting Lance here, the fastball should still have some hop. You're going to go to the MLB ball, so he's going to lose a little bit. It was like 18, 19 inches of IVB. That he projects probably down like 16 or so, but the stuff may take a dip, but he throws the fastball in the zone at 70% clip. And so, and I know it's the same. I think his name is Brandon too, at Sports Info Solutions. He did a full breakdown. He watched, every Roki Sasaki start and has a great breakdown over there. He did the same thing for Sugano and talked about that, throw the fastball up in the zone probably a little bit more because he leaves it over the plate. It's going to get hit hard. And in Japan, they're throwing, it's a dead baseball. So, the home run numbers, the power numbers against him look fantastic. When he comes over to the States, he's leaving balls over the middle of the plate, a 91, 92 mile per hour fastball here. There's going to be a home run issue. But if he can locate his pitches like that, the cutter, curveball, splitter, as Lance calls it, the cutters, the lefty neutralizer, the curveball splitter are huge swing and miss offerings. I think, you can tinker with the mix, tinker with the usage, which apparently Drew French and Ryan Klimek and Elias and Mike Snyder were all on the call with Sasaki, and they grilled him on that and had a good back and forth conversation about that. And it seems like, they've got plans, and they presented that plans how they're going to tinker with the usage to help his stuff play up more in Major League Baseball. And clearly Sugano was into it and picked the Orioles, which again leads into what I think the bigger thing with this signing is the impact he's going to have on this organization for hopefully years to come.
Yeah, I think the Orioles are going to have more eyeballs from Japan than they ever have before, most likely, with this Hall of Famer in the KBO, or not KBO, I'm sorry, MPD. Is that what it is? MBD?
MVP.
Yeah, MVP. It's honestly not that much different than when Zach Eflin was brought in. They did make some small changes with his pitch mix, and I wonder because, he's obviously not the same pitcher. He's got a larger repertoire. He's got 6 pitches, and the stuff is a little bit different, but I wonder if, just like with Eflin, who comes in and throws strikes, gets soft contact, doesn't strike out a bunch of guys, he comes over to the Orioles, they make some small pitch sequencing changes. I think they had him go to the sinker a little bit more. I can't remember exactly, but if they can honestly treat him similar to that, maybe the strikeouts can go up. Maybe they can get more out of him. And I think signing Sugano might give Albert Suarez another role on this team again, where it was kind of looking like if the Orioles bring in 2 starters, what is Albert Suarez's role going to be? Because he pitched worse in the bullpen than he did out of the rotation. He's out of options. He was so good for us this past season. He should have a role. Is he going to be trade bait? But honestly, if you just make Sugano like your Saturday or Sunday starter for most of the season, and then the weeks when there's a day off or two, you keep your 5-man rotation. The weeks when you need a 6th starter, if you have Albert Suarez available in the bullpen, he can fill that role. So it's just something that I thought could maybe be a way to, whether it's Suarez or even Trevor Rogers or whoever, maybe just take extra advantage of the arms that you have on your pitching staff.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists like Leslie put people at the heart of everything they create.
With my team at Comcast, we developed the Xfinity Voice Remote and tested it to recognize different types of accents, inflections, and languages.
New movies.
Movies for kids.
Películas para las familias.
Now 40 million voice commands a day are heard by the Xfinity Voice Remote. Visit ComcastCorporation.com to learn more.
Holiday magic is in the air, and DSW's got all the shoes to make your season extra merry. Believe, you've got parties to attend and lists to check twice, so DSW is taking care of the details, like gifts to make their eyes all aglow, styles that bring joy to your world, brands everyone wants, like UGG, Nike, Birkenstock, and more, and deals to make your budget bright. Find the perfect shoes for you and yours at a DSW store near you or DSW.com.
Did you know adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't? From swimming lessons to piano classes, as parents, we invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But how much are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids essential skills like earning, saving, and investing, giving them the tools for financial confidence. This investment costs less than an after-school treat at Starbucks. Start prioritizing their financial education today with Greenlight. Invest in their future at greenlight.com/podcast.
I found it interesting in a piece in The Athletic this week. Ken Rosenthal kind of pulled back the curtain on how the Orioles managed to sign Sugano. And again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, this was really not on anybody's radar as a move the Orioles were going to make. So the announcement comes out, and then you learn from Rosenthal's piece, which I would highly recommend that you go read if you haven't read it already, about how the Orioles were really able to sell him on the development aspect of it, which is an unusual thing you don't really think about with a 35-year-old pitcher, but they sold him on ways they could help him be successful and even improve in the major leagues. And I thought that was really crucial because that's kind of what you have to sell as an organization right now. So for them to be able to go out and do that, and really in an all-hands-on-deck effort too, to me was impressive.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, a reason why I like this signing, and to Bob's point there about when you're going to throw him and everything, there is that issue of in Japan, in Korea, these guys throw once a week, right? So if he makes rotation, is he going to be able to go every 5 days, or are the Orioles going to go to a 6-man rotation, or how are they going to play all this out? I feel like with Sugano, he's not like Roki Sasaki, who now is going to have to adjust, and he's the flamethrower throwing upper 90s with all that extra effort on his arm. This is a command artist, right? So yeah, he's 35. Yeah, there's injury history. He might be breaking down just a little bit, but like I feel like if his profile, his game, his style is a really good fit for when he tries to translate it here over into the States. And then to Zach's point, talking about how they sold it, that's why I love this signing so much. Him as the pitcher, again, it's fine. I hope he does well. I hope he translates the stuff, profiles, as a solid 4 or 5 starter in the major leagues. He's just got to go out and execute now. But the bigger thing with this is that the Orioles said, hey, here's a Japanese legend, right? A 35-year-old guy who I think he had an opportunity to come to the States before and nobody wanted him. Or I don't know if there was something else with that, but
I think it was the 2020 season, so obviously very weird stuff involved there. And I think he was only going to come over if he got a certain amount of money on an offer. But yeah, there's a little bit more to it. But yeah, basically he was considering it before.
Well, he's 35. He's got this huge reputation over there. He doesn't want to come over here and like flatline, right? Or pitch for the Angels, right? And just win 45 games next year, or the White Sox. Like, the Orioles sold him on, you come over here, win a World Series. Here's how we're going to do it. And also, like, here's how we're going to make you better. Here's how we're going to extend your career. Not saying that there's a huge ceiling there, but here's how we can tinker with your stuff and get maybe just a little bit more out of you, hopefully. And when you're selling the pitching development, as we've been talking about for so long, if you can sell it to this 35-year-old all-star MVP Japanese pitcher to come all the way to Baltimore and pitch, where like there are no other Japanese players on this roster. I don't even know if there's a single Asian player in this organization. I think that's huge. He could have went to another team. If he wants to go win a World Series in the States, there are plenty of other teams. I'm sure he could have went to, I don't know how many teams offered him, but I'm sure other teams had much easier pitches. He chose the Orioles. The Orioles sold what they're preaching down the farm as far as pitching is concerned and at the major league level, and it worked.
Yeah, and honestly, this is a long shot. I don't think this is likely, but I'm not ruling out the possibility that there's still 2 more starting pitcher additions on the way, and that leaves you room to potentially, Mike Elias was quoted earlier this offseason, I think, at the winter meetings, that they're looking for more major leaguer type of trades this season and not as much emptying the farm for a pitcher or a player that they trade for. So maybe Dean Kramer becomes a viable trade candidate, and then Sugano could take his place, and then you still get 2 more pitchers. I think that's asking a lot, but wouldn't rule it out. Maybe a Kramer-Mountcastle combination for who knows who, another pitcher or what have you. But yeah, I just like, clearly this organization loves having options and ways that they can recover from injuries and just have options available that they can use. Albert Suarez started last year in the minor leagues. He becomes a crucial piece. They're thinking further ahead than the randos on talk that host radio shows and call into radio shows and the guys on Twitter.
But it's like,
go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I hope this is, even if his impact on the field isn't huge, he's a 1 WAR pitcher, right? It gives us 115, 120 innings of okay baseball. It's still, it's not a huge investment here in Sugano, but I do hope that this is their foot in the door. And I think in that Rosenthal piece, I think he mentions that it's ownership, I think is the quote, that ownership's goal is to create a stronghold in Asia, which is a positive sign to see. I don't think he said it was Elias, although I'm sure Elias and Kobe Perez and these guys have been trying that. But to hear that this is also a goal of ownership is pretty cool. But I hope this is the foot in the door to say, all right, maybe they're not going to get Sasaki. They're probably not going to get Sasaki, although, as we just seen, anything can happen. But this is the foot in the door, and you've got a Japanese legend who will go back home and say, hey, this organization treated me well. It's a good organization. This is a good clubhouse. The development is good. And the Orioles present a strong case to younger, higher quality players in the future. And yeah, it's a win, a huge win for, Mike Snyder and Kobe Perez and the entire organization to get this first one in the books. And I hope it leads to some bigger things in the future.
Before we wrap up, I think the one thing that we can all agree on sitting here is the Orioles aren't finished with the rotation just yet. There's going to be another move this offseason. And it's likely going to be to acquire a pitcher that's going to pitch at the top of the rotation. Now, even before you bring in that extra arm, you've got a lot of depth. It's a question about quality, but you've got a lot of depth. let's say the Orioles do bring in another pitcher. What do you think that 5-man or possibly 6-man rotation looks like when you factor in another acquisition plus Sugano, plus Zach Eflin, plus Grayson Rodriguez, plus Dean Kramer, Albert Suarez, Cade Povich, Trevor Rogers, who we've kind of forgotten about but is still in the organization. You could even throw Chase McDermott and Brandon Young in there if you wanted to. How do the Orioles sort all of this out? Do you think that it's a set 5 that Sugano and Kramer are at the back of the rotation, or is there a little bit of competition in there?
I definitely think there will be competition in spring. I think we've seen it before that the Orioles are not afraid to, if someone's shown vast improvements in AAA, it proves that they're ready, and another person looks like they took a step back, I don't think they're scared to make that switch. But I don't think we know who the opening day starter is yet. Well, we definitely don't know, but I think the guy that's going to start on opening day is not on the team just yet. I think that person will be acquired, whether it's retaining Corbin Burns, trading for a Zach Gallen like we talked about last week. That'll be number one. Then you got Eflin and Rodriguez, 2-3 somewhere. I think Kramer and Povich are right there at the back. And then, like I said, maybe it's Sugano every Sunday afternoon with Albert Suarez starting in the bullpen but can fill in when needed. Trevor Rogers, I think, will start in AAA unless he shows, comes into spring training just looking amazing. And then, of course, you have McDermott, Young, even guys like Pham, Weston, Bright in AAA ready for their chance when it arrives, if and when it arrives. Hopefully we don't go into spring training in a couple months and that first press conference with Michael Elias like last year, hopefully it's not too bad, the injury front news that we hear. Yeah, I think that's basically what it's going to look like.
I forgot all about that coming up where, they're hiding all these injuries. No, every organization has that first press conference where they just unload all the bad news. Yeah, I don't know. I like you bring in the top line guy, right? Or I think it needs to be a top line guy, but what if it is like a Sean Manaea or someone in that second tier free agency that we talked about before? Either way, you're going to bring in another guy. That guy plus Eflin, plus Rodriguez, plus Kramer, plus Sugano. I like that 5. Suarez in the bullpen gives you a little bit of length down there. And then to have Povich and Trevor Rogers, these are younger guys who have options, so you can send them down to AAA. McDermott can be in the mix as well. We know they're clearly, as much as I would love for them to just put McDermott in the bullpen, they're not going to do that right now. They're going to keep working him as a starter. This is what I was saying at the beginning of the offseason. I would love for Norfolk's rotation to be Cade Povich, Chase McDermott, Brandon Young, Trevor Rogers, Armbruster, or another veteran that they bring in, off the waiver wire, some veteran they bring last minute when spring training starts to add a Spencer Watkins type arm to add some depth down to AAA.
Julio Teheran.
Hopefully a little bit better than that. But but I would love for that to be Norfolk's rotation to start the year and for the Orioles to roll with the guys without options at the top. And then, if you got to move Sugano, if you got to do a 6-man and bring Rogers or Povich, you ride the hot hand. If it's Rogers starts out the year hot, you come up, you give him a shot, you roll the dice. And if he starts to flounder after 5 or 6 starts, you can send him back down. Like, this is why you have the options. And the Orioles, like you said, have no issues with moving these guys in and out. They're young arms too. Rogers, Povich, all these guys are young arms. I think they'll giving them more time down in AAA next year isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if we can bring in a Corbin Burns or trade for another ace and set the seat. You need 10, 12, 15 starters to get through the year. Yeah, they're far from done regardless.
And that does it for this episode of Orioles on the Verge. We will be back in a few days with a mailbag. A lot of great listener questions came in the days leading up to this show, so we're looking forward to getting into those. And that will give us at least one more episode before 2024 comes to a close. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And as a hint, one of our mailbag questions in the episode later this week is going to talk about something that just appeared on Substack. So you should look forward to that. And you can find us over at Patreon. Our community there you can join for as little as $3 a month, and at the $5 and $10 levels have access to exclusive coverage. Should note two things. One, our countdown of the top 50 prospects for 2025 will begin sometime in early January. And the other is that you can still give Patreon memberships as gifts. This offer is available to current Patreon members to give a Patreon gift subscription to an Orioles fan in their life. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists like Kunle put people at the heart of everything they create.
The way that I approach work post-fatherhood has really been trying to understand the generation that we're building devices for. Here at the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own.
Now millions of families can work, learn, and play together under one roof. Visit ComcastCorporation.com to learn more.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday.